Hey YouTube, Dread Joker here, and today we're going to be taking a look at one of my older master grades, the Guncannon. This is one of those suits that I wish they would have done a 2.0 on, but at the same time, from being made in 2001, this thing certainly has way better articulation than a lot of people give it credit for. Let's get the manual out of here, shall we? So here's the kit itself. It is very red. I will say I have done no lining to this kit. I have done one bit of modification, and that is I put some silver paint from a Tester's silver marker right behind the visor, because if you don't, you are never going to see this detail. I'm going to give them credit for doing the colored clear part, and then I'm going to ask them why they did this, so where you can't even see the detail. So, let's get the marker out of here. The articulation is pretty good. You have some of the weirdest shoulders I've ever seen, though. These ones you build up in sections. You get the cap down here, which is in here. You connect the arm into this, then you plug the shoulder over the top, and then you put this part on the top, and then you somehow have to finagle all of this onto here. This is easier said than done. That being said, you get a little bit of shoulder movement, you get this nice arm up, and you can't actually see the armor segments rotating with it, so that's cool. You get a decent elbow bend, but in fairness, you weren't exactly seeing the Guncannon doing Jackie Chan stuff. It's the Guncannon. It's an artillery unit with legs. That's what it is. Hands. These are the weirdest freaking hands I have built lately, and I can safely say that. The hands, let me just zoom in here, are very awkward. So they're standard 3-1, I can't say standard because they've never used these since. The upper finger you put on first after you connect the thumb. Then you have to slide these fingers into it, and they do tab in, but the weird thing is, the trigger finger is holding all of this mass together. It's the trigger finger and a tiny peg down here. This is very weird. The back of the hand, okay, I'm going to give them credit, they got a nice detail here. No additional painting required. The entire hand is also connected down here via a ball joint. Somewhat limited, but again, it's the Guncannon. This thing was not doing Jackie Chan stuff. That was all left to Amuro. Zooming back out, we're going to see the cannons. These are the regular cannons that it had for the majority of the anime, because, well, I didn't care for the special edition movies. They're faster, they're more efficient. I watched them dubbed for 5 minutes, and I can't get through 5 minutes. I watched them subtitled. I also can't get through more than 5 minutes. Sliding it back, he also has the rocket pods from the special edition movies. Once again, pick the style of cannon you are going to go with, because these are a nightmare to change out. For additional accessories, he includes the beam rifle, no shield, Guncannon did not have one. He also has a pair of jazz hands. These are very useful for basically one pose and one pose only. Or if you're going to do a mixed match, you could have the Guncannon vaulting over, say, a wall, because I think it did that like one time and one time only. Of course, this could also be in my head where everything happens once and once only. Now this, being an old kit, I have to correct the box's grammar. Because, and trust me, this is going to become a running gag, so just join me in with I say this, he also has a core fighter. Except that I don't have that equipped. The core fighter is separate. I keep it that way, because he features a Corbrock! Yes, the manual and everything else refers to this as a Corbrock. Was an L that expensive? Seriously, Bandai, I know that English is not your first language. Please, you're making it too hard to make jokes that are safe and not offensive. The manual lists every inch of this as the exact same color as this. Okay. I'm covering this up all the time. I'm not putting in that much freaking effort. Core Brock is very easy to remove. It's just on... I say very easy to remove, and then it's not wanting to let go. This is typical. Let go! There we go. Core Brock. Very standard. You have the pilot figure of Kai Shiden in there. I'd say Hayato, but that's only in the movies. It's very nicely detailed. Again, very good. Couple of polycaps in there to hold it all together, and that's what it looks like without it. It's just a gigantic set of red pants. Getting that plug back in, you can also swap in the Core Fighter if you want to. I personally recommend just leaving this to the side. If this is your only Core Fighter, I recommend leaving it out, because this is fully transformable. And oh boy, when you are building this thing is going to drive you to drink. Because this little assembly, as we watch, let's just get him reassembled here, slide back down, fold that off, and set him aside. Now we're going to do a sanity check here, because this almost drove me mad, just on this. That has one area that also drove me insane, but that was for a completely different reason. The Core Fighter. Very, very Core Fighter thing. It's a block, but if you pull the front of the block, you might notice that it gets, there's no way to ease it, it gets a tail erection. Slide out the nose, and fold down the wings. This is a very easy transformation. Easy on paper. And when you're doing the instructions and doing it in real life, you're going to lose your mind. Because the problem is this part right here. There are two parts to this. And until you get them all lined up and in this tail section is not secured to anything. This is just flopping around in there. As you can see, I'm just wiggling it back and forth, and it's going side to side. You can probably hear it clicking, too, if I shut up long enough. There is nothing holding this except for a tiny peg here. This was very frustrating. There's also no pilot figure in here. Well, there is, but it's not the traditional one that you would put in the cockpit there. This one is molded exclusively for the Core Fighter. So let's just get this transformed, and it does have landing gear. I personally do not see myself ever displaying this with landing gear on. I'm probably going to rig it up into a flight stance. So that way I can have, I cannot remember the name of the guy, but if this was Gundam Seed, this was the guy who got shot down in the Sky Grasper. Seed basically just copied this scene. Seed copied a lot of stuff, but Seed was still good. So, bringing Mr. Core Brock back in here, we're going to get to the rest of his articulation. His head goes very far back, again, to facilitate his gimmick. One thing to note about the head, the Vulcans are individual parts. I like this very, very much. Assembling this was a bit of a headache. No pun intended. The antennas. These are nice plastic parts. Be extremely careful with these. These are very fragile. The backpack. Where did they think this was gonna work? This looks like they just took the gun tank's backpack and gave it additional thrusters. Now, this has some really weird stuff underneath it. If it ever wants to let go, underneath here, you have these two ammo belts, which lead up into the cannons here. Well, they're supposed to. What they actually do is they lead up to a small part behind here. These are basically a polycap material that feels like it has a twist tie inside of it. I am not a fan of these, especially since they basically serve no purpose. If you had two plastic tabs here versus this, you could just do the exact same thing. Also, this peg grips as hard as these two things do, so redundant. I don't know why it is. I don't know why they did this. I can also see why they never redid this. Moving on to the rest of articulation, as I will get him turned around here, we also have this very, very wonky beam rifle. This is very weird. This is the kind of stuff I would be making for Halloween if I was on a budget. But the scope can move out really, really far. It is a solid clear piece, so if you're going to do any painting, this is like the one spot that's required of it. That being said, it is actually clear on both sides because you just insert this from one direction. Beam rifle is okay. The hands hold it pretty darn well. But as for the rest of articulation, let's get down and focus on his lower body. Heyo. Hips are on a sliding joint, which can bring them forward and backwards. This is to accommodate crouching poses. I wish they would bring these back, because as far as ball jointed hips go, these were pretty good. The knee. Really good knee. And as it bends, it actually brings this piece of armor forward and exposes it. I like this this skid plate design behind here. This is a nice detail touch. Again, Bandai, please bring these back. He also has two side compartments here for grenades, which I did not put in there because these are hard enough to get open when there's nothing in there. These are going to be next to impossible to open when there's 3 pieces of plastic in there. Ankles. Very, very far bend on the ankles, so he can get some nice charging poses. Decent side to side. And overall, this is a very good kit. I picked this up from a local hobby store that just happened to start carrying the kits for about 34 bucks, less tax. And I am very happy with this. Would I buy another one? Oh, absolutely. Would I modify it? Oh yeah, this demands customization. And if I get it back in frame, you can finally see what I'm doing. I forget to move the camera every once in a while. Proof that I haven't done this in a while. Oh, the enthusiasm's going up and down and all over the place, but when you're crunching out 4 reviews a night for a while, it's gonna be a little enthusiastic all over the place, and proof that the caffeine is finally kicking in. But this is the Guncannon. I love this thing. So to swap out the hands, what you have to do is they're on ball joints. So you just grip them and rip them. Then what you're supposed to do is take the hand and the covering, slide the covering off, which is easier said than done because it goes over the ball joint. Put it back on there, twist it, line it all up. There's a groove in here, there's a groove on the hand. Line it up. And it may not want to cooperate, because these hands are on hinges. And once again, when the camera's on, nothing wants to cooperate. Okay, these things only go on one direction. Good to know. So if you put these hands together, he can ask you to halt or give him 5. So that's the Guncannon review. He's enthusiastic. Peace out. If you have any questions, comments, etc., please leave them in the description down below. I will be more than happy to answer them. Thank you very much for watching.